The body lay face down in a shallow creek just outside San Antonio. She couldn't have been more than 20. Red hair fanned across the water, hands bound behind her back. Her face, what was left of it, had been beaten beyond recognition. No shoes, no jewelry, no note. By the time the authorities were called, the body had already begun to bloat in the Texas heat. The sheriff shrugged. Another girl, another mystery. Probably a whore. They didn't even take her to the morgue. Just buried her in a pine box behind the city jail. No one came to claim her. No one investigated. Because in 1890s San Antonio, there were places a woman could vanish, and no one would ask questions. One of those places was Fannie Porter's house. It was a parlor full of secrets, frequented by legends. And while history remembers the outlaws who came and went, it forgot the women they left behind. This is their story. The murder of Fannie Porter's girls. In the late 19th century, San Antonio was a city of blurred lines. It wasn't quite lawless, but it wasn't civilized either. Cowboys, soldiers, gamblers, and railroad men poured through the city every day, bringing cash, whiskey, and trouble. Brothels flourished in the margins, especially around the area known as Soledad Street, just north of the river. And at the top of that world stood Fannie Porter. She was only in her 20s when she opened her first bordello in the early 1890s. British by birth, Fannie was striking, red-haired, clever, and whip-smart. She ran her operation with strict rules, high standards, and a velvet fist. Her parlor quickly became one of the most popular in Texas, not just for the women, but for the privacy. Fannie didn't tolerate drunkards or violence. Her girls were clean, well-dressed, and protected. She kept no ledger. No client names were written down. What happened in her house stayed there. That's why men like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid kept showing up. It's true. The Wild Bunch, sometimes called the Hole-in-the-Wall Gang, frequented Fannie's parlor often. San Antonio was a perfect stopover, close to the Mexican border, full of banks to rob and brimming with rail lines. And when they needed a place to disappear, Fannie made sure her doors were open. In return, the outlaws paid well and caused little trouble. Several of Fannie's girls became long-term companions of gang members. The most famous was Etta Place, the enigmatic woman often seen at Sundance's side. No one knows her real name. Some historians even believe Etta Place wasn't one person at all, but two or more women whose identities blurred over time. One theory is that Etta began her life at Fannie's parlor, young, pretty, educated. She may have met Sundance there, maybe fell in love, or maybe she just wanted a way out. The truth is, many of the girls who worked for Fannie came from hard pasts. Some were orphans, others had fled abusive marriages. A few had been lured to San Antonio under false pretenses, only to be forced into prostitution. Fannie was better than most madams. But even her house wasn't safe, because girls began to vanish. The first known murder linked to Fannie's circle happened in 1893. The victim's name was Alice Monroe. She was 17, blonde, and new to town. She'd only been at the parlor for a few weeks when she failed to return from a client appointment at one of the nearby hotels. Her body was found in an alley behind the Menger Hotel, strangled with her own corset string. Her purse was missing. So were her boots. Police said it was likely a robbery. But Fannie didn't believe that. Alice had been sweet, careful, and never left the house without checking in. Fannie offered a reward, hired private investigators, asked questions no one wanted to answer. Then came Maggie, then Ruth, then Belle. Each death followed the same pattern. Young women, last seen leaving the parlor or one of Fannie's satellite houses, found dead days later, strangled, bludgeoned, dumped. In every case, the police showed little interest. The victims were labeled working girls in official records, code for don't bother. The press barely reported the deaths. San Antonio's better families didn't want the stories circulating. Sometimes the girls weren't even named. One woman, discovered in 1896 near the train tracks west of town, was simply listed as unidentified female, red hair, 20s, prostitute. Fannie buried her herself. She paid for a coffin and a plot, placed lilies on the grave, and got back to work. Because in San Antonio, business didn't stop, not even for the dead. The most brutal killing came in 1898. Her name was Clara Duval. She was 19, born in Missouri, and had been working for Fannie for almost a year. Clara was different, educated, literate. She kept a diary, rare for women in her position, and often wrote about her dreams of escaping San Antonio. On September 2nd, 1898, Clara went out for an appointment with a repeat client. She never came back. 3 days later, children playing near the river found her body. She had been raped, stabbed multiple times, and thrown into the water. Her fingers were broken, one earring torn from her ear. Her diary was never recovered. Fannie was devastated. This time, she stormed into the sheriff's office, demanding action. She named the client, a local businessman, married, with political ties. She said Clara had been afraid of him. The sheriff said he'd look into it. He didn't. The man was never questioned. People began whispering. Some said the killer was a client, maybe a violent regular who grew obsessed with one of the girls. Others blamed rival madams, trying to sabotage Fannie's business. A few believed it was a lone predator, someone who waited for the girls outside, knowing their schedules, tracking their movements. Some even suspected a lawman. After all, Fannie's house operated with a level of protection most brothels didn't enjoy. Was someone getting paid to look the other way? Or worse, doing the killing himself? We'll never know, because no one was ever arrested. By 1901, Fannie Porter retired. She sold the parlor, shut the doors, and vanished from public life. Some say she moved to California. Others claim she went back to England. A few believe she stayed in San Antonio, quietly living out her days under a different name. She was never seen again. And the deaths? They faded from memory. New girls came, new saloons opened, San Antonio expanded, modernized, cleaned itself up. The old brothel was demolished. The records were lost. But for decades afterward, rumors persisted. Some said if you dug deep enough in the archives of the Bezar County Courthouse, you'd find sealed files marked with only initials or just the word female. Others claimed bones were found during roadwork near Soledad Street in the 1920s. Workers said they found corset stays, a shoe buckle, a small gold locket. No one reported it, just buried them again and paved over the site. Today, Fannie Porter is remembered, if at all, as the madam who hosted Outlaws. Books and documentaries glamorize the wild bunch, the bank heists, the escapes. They romanticize Etta Place. They linger on the men, but they forget the women, the ones who served whiskey with a smile, the ones who brushed gunpowder off outlaw coats, the ones who dreamed of other lives, then met their end in alleyways and riverbeds. There were at least 7 unsolved deaths tied to Fannie's parlor between 1893 and 1899. Likely more. No one kept good records of the girls. That was the point. But sometimes, in San Antonio, when the river runs low, locals say you can still see something strange on the banks just past downtown. A small stone, weathered and half-sunken, with no name. Just a single carved letter. C. No one knows if it's real, or if it's just another ghost on the frontier. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from the old frontier.